Hey, right, we're live, Katie. So thanks for joining me. Oh, get rid of that. We're here to talk about your journey of training to be a coach. So you joined us probably about a year ago now, wasn't it? I think starting on the March cohort, and you are pretty much completed on your ILM 7. And obviously, we're bringing people on board now for our March cohort. People who want to train as a coach can come and join our programs. We kick off on the 10th of March. And as much as Joe and I rave about coaching, to say how wonderful it is and how wonderful we are, that's not really helpful when people want to know actually what it's really like. So we wanted to bring you on to share some of the realities. Did you want to share a bit about why you joined, what the program's been like, what life is like for you now? Just bring it alive for people.
Absolutely. So from my perspective, it was exactly a year ago that I came along to one of your masterclass events, which was fantastic. And prior to that point, I had no intention of becoming a coach. I was an HR consultant. That's what I was going to do. I had very, very early days of trying to think about how I was going to establish a business. And I saw your post about the masterclass. And I thought, oh, it's interesting. Let's have a look. And the more I heard, the more I thought, oh, hang on a minute, this is what I've been doing. This is actually something I think I've been pretty good at. Why am I not? Why have I all just made this assumption I'm not a coach? Why would I think that? And I think we had a follow-up conversation since that. And that's what really then solidified the decision for me that actually, if I'm going to go on my merry way and establish my business, I'm very much I guess concerned maybe isn't the right word, but thinking a lot about my credibility and how am I going to come across. Like, integrity is really important to me, and this was something for me that I thought, this is a piece that's going to be missing if I'm going to be having those kind of conversations with people. I want that credibility to back it up. And when I came along to a masterclass, everything just felt like it slotted into place, and all of a sudden I thought, yes, this is the bit that's been missing. So the whole time where I was just like, no, I'm an HR person, that's what I do. It just shifted, and I was like, oh, I'm not that at all. That's not what it's about.
Yeah, so, it gets to be much broader, doesn't it? So you'd already made a transition into self-employed. How long had you been in that HR consultancy world from your corporate days? Oh, 1 month. Awesome.
Yeah. So I wrapped up my job. It was kind of at the end of 2020, the beginning of 21, and in my mind I was, what I know is HR. Some of my background is in commercial management as well, but what I was comfortable with is HR. I wanted to change the world through HR. That was where I wanted to go. And then the more I have learned as well since then is, and I don't mean this with any disrespect to HR people, because we are fantastic. I still consider myself an HR person, and the work we do is so very necessary, but also actually we aren't just HR people. The role we perform in organizations is so much broader than that. And I realized quickly, get out of that box. It's not what it's about.
So let's skip the training part of the middle. We'll come back to that. Where are you now? Like, what's your business looking like now you've done this kind of coaching training journey?
So without no spoiler alerts, it's going pretty well. So I think moving from a space of thinking, I'm not a coach, that's not what I'm doing, I'm going to help with policy and process. I've realized actually a lot of the conversations I have are very much coaching conversations, and where I am now is working, I guess, with my consultancy hat on, working with organizations who are committed to making more inclusive workplaces and working environments. And that is just 100% a coaching conversation in trying to unlock what is motivating them, what might be their barriers to wanting to implement things in their organization, and really getting into their why of doing it. So there's that piece of it. And then also from a group and one-to-one coaching perspective, I work with individuals and groups of people who have got their own things going on, and they want to kind of maybe get over their own blockers and barriers, or figure out, okay, if I'm a woman in a male dominated industry, how do I find my way? How am I changing myself to fit my environment, rather than how do I break this mold in the environment and say, no, we talk, don't we, about if there's no seat at the table, build your own. It's like, let's do it. So it's working in that space.
Yeah, awesome. And I remember when I left the corporate world, I trained as a coach previously. I left the corporate world. I thought, I'm going to be broke for like a good 6 to 12 months. And I got this financial cushion. I was like, oh, I need to make sure I don't dig into it too much. As you know, genuinely, my biggest concern was just not having any income, which for me didn't prove true at all, because I was able to reach out to my network and work came in. And what I love also about your story is there is no I've been broke for and destitute for months. Like you've been out there. I see you on LinkedIn all the time with your stuff, and it's very real possibility to make this transition, isn't it? And to make it happen. So do you want to share with us, you know, some of what your beliefs were and how you've actually turned this into a career which does, surprise, earn you money?
It does. I know it does. And sometimes I have that moment of like, I get paid by people to do this, but sometimes there's that. But yeah, so at the very beginning, like you, I guess I was very fortunate that I had a buffer that enabled me to really make that decision of, rather than moaning about wanting to do better, I thought, I mean, I'm literally going to put my money where my mouth is and do better. And yeah, I was very prepared for, you know, it's going to have to be lean. All the belts were tightened. Spending was absolutely monitored down to the pence. And I'm glad it did, actually, because I learned a lot about where I was being a bit frivolous. But actually, it wasn't as required as I thought it would be. Exactly as you said, people that I'd worked with previously in other organisations and connections I'd made were reaching out to me, interested to know, what are you up to? We remember you. Can we have a conversation? Some of them go somewhere immediately. A lot of them don't. Some of them you keep circling back to, and they're kind of more ongoing conversations, which actually I really love, because developing those relationships and connections is important. And I kind of was very prepared for this roller coaster of inconsistent income. You know, you brace yourself, don't you?
Yeah.
And actually, it's been much more consistent than I thought it would be. And every time where I've been a bit, oh, I wonder what's going to be going on next month. Things are looking a bit, you know, a bit better. And then something comes along. And I'm really learning now just to trust. You know, you don't have the comfort blanket of the regular income. No one is going to, you know, reach into your bank account and just deposit money automatically, as I was always used to.
Yeah.
But actually, in the nicest, you know, fluffy way, the universe delivers, right? You put your time in, you have the right conversations, you show up, and somehow it all just comes together. People do want to work with you.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I see you doing is consistency. Like you're on LinkedIn pretty much every single day, if not more. And you tell stories and you share examples and you use your network. And of course, all of those things you've invested in and you've picked up in your own development, but you also pick that up from the coach community that you're a part of, and people kind of supporting each other. We do bits of that on the program, but also you're in our business lounge, so you get some of that from the business lounge as well. So it's not just the universe. I believe the universe.
That's true.
Yep. You know what? It's not going to provide if I sit back on my tush and don't do anything.
You've got to be open to it, haven't you? I quite liked, I've been reading Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert recently, and that's really kind of helped shift a mindset piece in there as well around, you've got to be open. And in my case, being open is showing up, and just when people ask for help, not necessarily thinking, how am I going to make a sale out of this, but okay, how can I add value? And having those conversations where you have genuine interest for other people, and you want to get involved in their issue or their celebration, because it works both ways, tends to open doors elsewhere. People remember you, people circle back. You know, I've now learned the LinkedIn lurkers, that people are watching, even when they're not interacting, even when they're not liking and commenting, people are watching. And even this week, actually, I had an incredible conversation with someone who messaged me and said, hey, let's just have a coffee, because he'd seen some of my videos and he just wanted to tell me that he really enjoyed watching my videos, not in a creepy way, in a really good kind of mentor way. Like, he really enjoyed watching my content, how I came across, and he was really interested in my thoughts on things that he was doing. And it's that's how those relationships come about. Absolutely. And you don't know where it's going to go, but it's you just know it's going to go somewhere.
And I find those people who will message me on LinkedIn are people I've never seen comment, never seen respond. And it's quite an easy conversation of, I'd like some coaching, I'd like to work with you. And you don't know where they come from. But they'll say, I've been watching you for ages, or I've been following your work. So yeah, that consistency piece definitely works.
Yeah.
So tell us about the coaching training then, from your own experience. How's it been for you?
It's been a ball, actually. Being total, I mean, obviously there is hard work and effort, and you do have to put the time in. And that was, I think, time was one thing that I was always really conscious of, because no matter how much time I seem to have, I fill it very adequately. But it turns out when you make space for something, which was this training, you know, it became a lot of focus for me, and I really enjoyed it. The people on my cohort were wonderful. I've really loved relationships I've made, and in the business lounge, actually, the people that you get to hang out with and chat to. It's really reassuring that you are all on the journey together, and actually that everyone's really different. We all came from different backgrounds with different levels of understanding and where we wanted to go. And that for me was great, just to go, oh yeah, like we can all be totally different, do it the same training together, and come out the other end of the funnel doing something different. And then in doing the training with everybody as well, you know, going through all of the different tools and techniques that we learn, we all took something different away. But hearing that from other people was like, oh yeah, I didn't get that, but now I do. So that was incredible. And actually just learning the tools and techniques themselves, it was coming to coaching as someone who was familiar with the grow model particularly, and that was kind of my go-to, you know, work through. And then just going, oh, hang on a minute, there's about 40 others that I never knew about, and I'm going to get to go through all of them, which is firsthand a bit like, oh, okay, where am I going to store all this in my brain, or am I just going to have to carry around a giant folder with me forever? It turns out, no, it sinks in really quickly. The way that the learning materials are structured is really easy to get your head around, and doing it in those weekly chunks for me was perfect, because I'm a bit of a curiosity magpie. So if I get down a rabbit hole, so knowing I literally had a week to learn a thing, talk about the thing, and then move on was really useful, because otherwise I would probably have binged the whole lot and maybe not taken it in so well. So that was really, really good. So yeah, the learning and training side of it, from like an experiential perspective, but also like a content perspective, it's been super helpful. And given that my goal was like credibility, it gave me that, what I feel, in spades, just kind of knowing the things that I knew, that was great, but then finding out all the stuff I didn't know that I now know I don't know, was brilliant. And then kind of also then thinking, well, still don't know everything, and just because that was a small snippet, there's a whole world of more learning that I can go off and you know, be the curiosity magpie and start digging into. So it's great.
I think that's the thing with coaching training programs, is there is a huge amount of stuff that you pick up, but it's also recognized it's just the beginning. So if coaching is not for everybody, like some people take coaching into their organization and keep it quite contained, but if you want to be a coach, you don't have to stop. Like there's so many different places you can continue. And I think for me, that's the joy of coaching, because it's, you know, there's just so many different directions you can take it in.
And figuring out what works as well, because like we're all human and different, and even if we were all going to become coaches, like there's enough space for everyone to become a coach, because people wanting coaching are looking for the person that's right for them. So I know that all of the stuff that I took out from the learning that kind of worked for me and kind of sunk in with me will resonate with the people I'll probably end up working with. And other people would take different things, and that will resonate with different people, and that's what makes it good, you know, because there's just space for everybody to get into what works for you.
Definitely. So very quickly, what would you say about, so that's kind of the training, what would you say about your personal experience, or the impact that coaching's had on you sort of more personally?
Yeah, so it turns out you can't go through a course like this, can you, without learning a lot about yourself? It does not happen in a vacuum. It's changed. It has really changed who I am and the conversations I have and how I approach things. I notice now every time I'm asking a question, it will generally begin with a what, regardless of what I'm doing. My mind has started operating differently. I've, you know, doing the work, learning about how to do values exercises obviously means I've dug into my own values, which not only from just being a human perspective was really useful to understand, why do these things like tick me off, energize me, like getting that was great, but also actually then in helping consolidate my own business idea, that was able to go, well, hang on, why am I chasing this direction when if these are all my values, it makes sense that I'm going to focus on this. So that was fantastic, working on self-limiting beliefs and recognizing that I've got this perfectionist streak, and all of this stuff coming out, you know it all in the back of your mind, but when you get to go through the exercises, you really learn about it, and then you can start thinking, okay, maybe I'll work on that too for myself. That's quite useful to have.
You get to make choices, don't you? So much of that stuff, just whilst we are aware, it sort of sits in the normal zone of our processing, whereas when you bring it out, you're like, oh, it doesn't have to be there, I can shift that to the not very useful zone, and then you've got some choices you can sort of make about the way that you are and how you respond and things.
Yeah, definitely. And I think learning through this as well, I've learned I'm an incredibly visual thinker, so metaphors and things work for me. So now I know if I'm facing a particular problem, I tend to address it myself, coming at it from a metaphorical angle, just to go, what if this was going to be a boat, what would it be? And then I come up with all these different things about choppy seas and needing a life raft and all this kind of stuff, and I can build a picture for myself about, okay, how am I going to face this thing? So it's things like that have really been like, so good.
So what would you say to anyone who's sort of watching this and thinking, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll do some coaching training, not sure, like what would you say?
Well, I mean, it's going to come as no surprise. I'm going to do it. If you think it could add value, then there is something in you telling you it will add value. And I would say listen to that voice, or at least get curious about that voice and where it's coming from and why is it trying to talk to you. Because like I say, I came to this from a place of, I don't think that's me trying to put myself in a box of who I am and I'm not. And actually what I have learned, it is very much me, and there was something in me that knew it, and I just had to listen and go with it. I mean, so much so that when I joined you, I started off doing the ILM level 5, didn't I?
And you did. I
got partway into it and I was like, no, I'm so into this, it's delivering me so much value, and I upgraded to the 7 because I realized that's the level that I want to be working at, having those executive level conversations, and I want, if I want to make a difference truly, that's where I need to be. So okay. Go for it is what I would say. If you've got, if your curiosity has been piqued, follow that down the rabbit hole, because for me curiosity is just golden, and if it's speaking to you, let it out.
Said like a true coach, Katie.
I know, right?
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining and sharing some of your story. I hope if people aren't there yet, hopefully it just inspires the conversation around coaching and what it can do for you. So really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me along. It's been great.
You're welcome.